Good morning. Happy Monday. We are going to see if we can get Lori dialed in this morning. I hope everybody's having a good day. There we go. Let's see. There we go.
Good morning. You're looking very fallish. I like it.
I know. Thank you. I'm loving this weather.
Yeah. So this morning, we're going to talk about something that we've both experienced a little bit this past week. So putting it all out there, I guess. And so,
all right, here we go. Raw.
So we're going to talk about, so we talked about E plus R equals O, or the event plus your response leads you to your outcome. And so everything's an event. Like the way you react when somebody looks at you wrong or says something that just hits you wrong, like everything in our life is an event, but we choose how we respond to those events. And so Tanya and I have both had a situation in the last little bit here recently where even though we know better, like we know better on a logical level, you know, little things that someone said to us or conversations we've had, instead of responding in a positive way, we have responded in a way that leaves us feeling sort of yucky. And so what we're going to talk about today is there's this space between when something happens and how you respond. And in that space, that little bit of time, you're telling yourself a story that leads you to your response.
And so I think with this, and we've talked about this, because response, when something happens, there's an immediate response, right? And so sometimes it's just taking a second and breathing before you make that immediate response. You know, it could be in traffic and you're holding onto the wheel and somebody cuts you off and it's your immediate. But we're talking, you know, in our situations, it's more of, it was an immediate response, but you can also build on that response. And I think that's what we both had a situation that occurred where it was an immediate response, but then we continued to tell ourselves a story that wasn't true, but it's based on past experiences and past beliefs and current beliefs. And so we continued to have a response to the event that made us feel, I mean, we both talked about it, like stones in our stomachs, like there was anger, there was frustration, there was, you know, I'm not enough feelings, there were why me there. So I think that we get to the point where even though our response is immediate, there's a pause. And if even after you give that response, you can back up and gather your thoughts on why am I feeling this way. That was my immediate response, but I'm still responding. And I think that's what we're going to talk about too, is 5-year Tanya and Lori would have still been responding for weeks about these events. And these events were small little nothings. But we gathered ourselves and we got it under control. And so it was better more quickly.
Yeah, so I'll share my experience, just talking about putting it all out there, because it was so stupid. Like looking back on it, it's so stupid. We do such stupid things sometimes. But my husband said something to me on Saturday, and I did not like it at all. And like I went into total like defense mode. Like, I can't believe you just said that to me, and da 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 da. And I caught myself, but I was still mad. Like I was mad about it. And so what I did was remove myself from the situation for just a bit. And I like was going all over it in my head and everything, and was still mad when I got home. But actually talked to Tanya on Saturday, and I was like, in our conversation, I was like, wait a minute, like he didn't really do anything wrong. Why am I so mad about this? Like, yeah, I didn't like what he said, but it shouldn't have made me so angry for the rest of the day. And so, you know, I had to step back and go, wait a minute, why did I feel so angry at what he said? And, you know, I was telling myself a story that he was like almost insinuating that my good is never good enough. And that's a story I've got. That's a belief that maybe is deep down inside of me that maybe I don't believe that I'm good enough. And so once I realized that, I was still a little prickly, but I got over it a little bit quicker. And I know like 5 years ago, I'd have been mad all week. Like I'd have been silent treatment, shut down, body language, I know I would have been. And so it's just as we grow and we learn, how do we look at that little space of, did what he say really make me this angry, or is what I'm telling myself what made me so angry?
Well, and that's in a similar situation. Someone said something to me that, or treated me in a way that made me feel like I had done something. And I told myself a story like, okay, what did I do? How did I act? What is this really my fault? And I'm so used to things being my fault or feeling like they are and not feeling worthy or not feeling good enough or and so same thing, I would have taken the silent treatment. It would have been not spending time with people. It would have removed myself from situations. It would have been finding a way to make that person feel as yucky as they made me feel. And I think that as we've been doing this work, I think what I realized is, first of all, it wasn't that big of a deal. And the story I was telling myself, that was my story. That was my stuff. That person that was not their intent. And they've got their own story, right? I mean, so their response to something is about them. It had nothing to do with me. That was their past, their story, their belief. And I took that on and put my own story to it and allowed it to take up way more of my time and my energy for a day or two than I should have. And so I think that what we learned from this is, in the past, we would have let these events and our responses to these events, and then our feelings about these responses go on for weeks. Whereas we were 2 and done, right? A day and a half, and we're over it. So we're getting better. But I think the biggest takeaway we'd like for you guys to have on this is take a minute and ask yourself, what story are you telling yourself? And is it true? You know, a lot of times it's around worthiness and confidence and those things, but are you telling yourself a story, and is it true?
That's right. And so just look at them as opportunities. So when something makes you feel a certain way, it's taken a lot of work to get to the point where I can turn it around in a couple of hours. But and still have a lot of growth to do, absolutely. But I'm trying to look at these things as opportunities of when I do feel a certain way because of something happening, what do I need to learn about myself? What story am I telling? Am I validating whether that belief is true or not? And I think as I continue to do that, I'm growing and growing even more. And so we just challenge y'all to do the same, to really look at when something makes you feel a certain way. Why does it make you feel that way?
Right. And then take a minute and assess it. So, all right. So hopefully apparently somebody needed to hear this. So Lori and I maybe not experienced this at the same time the last few days. So we hope everybody's having a good Monday. We hope you take a minute to pause before you react. And then once you react and it doesn't feel so good, maybe take a minute to assess what that feels like and what story are you telling yourself, and is that story true? All right, guys, have a good week.